Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, Oregon. Support our work. Make a donation at strpod.com. Thank you for listening to Spent the Rent Podcast. And now, here's your host, Patty Rose.
Hello, I am Patty Rose. Welcome to the Spent the Rent Podcast. My guest today is Heather Quaas-Annsa. I got it wrong.
Quaas-Annsa.
Quaas-Annsa, yeah. You got a hyphen. You got me early in the morning. I never get names right. We literally said this 10 seconds ago. Thank you so much for being here. Heather is a candidate, is a vice chair on the Springfield School Board in position 2 and is a candidate for re-election. You are an incumbent, but you were appointed to the board in August of 2024. So you were seeking your first full 4-year term.
Correct.
And so, we wanted to have you on to let voters get to hear your story, with your experience on the board so far, and your vision for the local public schools. So let's just get right into it. Thank you so much for being here. Little backstory. We have a mutual friend, Chris McAllister. Shout out to Chris McAllister. He made this possible. He's been bugging me for about a year now for me to have you on, and it's just this timing hasn't lined up. And then now the ballots just came out. I got mine yesterday. I really want people to pay attention to these school board elections. This is really vital for our community, and it takes 5 minutes. You can Google names if you're not familiar. That's why I do this show. But shout out to Chris McAllister, a mutual friend of ours, for making this happen. So let's get started. Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let's get started. So let's start with your story. What brought you to Springfield, or are you from Springfield originally? And what shaped your path to this moment?
So not from Springfield originally. I am a California native that transplant. I know. But I've been here almost 20 years. So the majority of my adult life, I have been in Oregon. So yeah, I moved up here in 2006. Actually moved to Eugene and then sort of wandered around Lane County for a hot minute. Moved to Springfield. It'll be 4 years this October. And my husband's job is what moved us here. He works at Arkland, which is just down the street from our house. And so that was really convenient. Also have 3 teenagers, and where we were living in the Bethel area of Eugene, our house was not big enough. The teenagers really needed their own rooms, their own spaces. And so Springfield was what made it possible.
Yeah. Springfield, over the last 20 years, you've seen the growth and the revitalization of really a sense of pride. I grew up in Springfield. I moved here in 94, and I have bounced back and forth between Eugene and Springfield. I graduated from South Eugene, but so I have had kind of my hands in the whole community, but Springfield is really doing well. And I think that there's a lot of things to be happy about. There's also a lot of things that we can improve on. And that's something that we'll talk about ad nauseum today. You were appointed to the board last year, and this is something that it doesn't get a lot of headlines. I started following the city council race when Mayor Lundberg had decided that she needed to step down. That was the mayor. Mayor Lundberg stepped down, and then when Sean Van Gordon was appointed, and then the replacement, and that whole process, that was kind of early on in my podcasting. Mm-hmm. So I've seen how this works. But talk about your appointment last year to the board, how that kind of came to be. Did they approach you, or how did that come to be?
So interestingly enough, I had actually thrown my hat in the ring for school board 2 years ago, because the person that was on the ballot that I was aware of was an actual fascist, and I was like, no, I'm not going to have them represent me and my kids. That seems counterintuitive to everything I believe in, and so I threw my name in the hat then. But Ken Cole approached me and said he'd already had a whole bunch of endorsements. He had a lot of the same thoughts and ideas and beliefs that I did. And since he was further along in the campaigning process, I was like, oh, cool. I was just trying to make sure a fascist wasn't on the board. I'll endorse you. So did that, and then wanted to still be involved. So I got on the Educational Equity Advisory Council of the Springfield Public Schools. We're one of the first schools in the area to actually establish that committee. That's part of a state mandate to have that. So I joined that committee, and then was put on the budget committee as a result. And so that's sort of what got me interested in figuring out like what my next steps were in terms of being on the board when Emilio stepped down due to health reasons. I was like, okay, like it's an appointment. It's only a couple months, and this will sort of get my feet wet and see if I like this or not, if this is something I'm passionate about and want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so I applied and interviewed well and got appointed.
I think that the appointments are great because it gives an opportunity for people that maybe aren't. There's a lot of us that want to get involved that just don't like maybe we have imposter syndrome. Maybe we don't feel like we are typical politicians. That's not what local politics are. I don't think that it is about being politicians. It shouldn't be. And I don't believe it is in Springfield. You know, I mean, for example, Alan Stout and I have been building a relationship behind the scenes, and we have very different views. Politically, we have different views. On ethics and morals, we have similar views on kindness. On, you know, just I think he's a good person. You know, my point is that he's proven to me that he's not just all about politics, at least so far. We'll see. but you know, we spoke off air. Do you want to add anything to that you don't find yourself to be a politician? You think that you're more. Explain what you mean when you say that.
So this is all new to me, and I'm learning as I go, and I'm definitely making mistakes as I go. My first round of flyers that I printed out, I didn't say anywhere on there what I was running for, and realized that after the fact. I was like, oh, that's probably important. Everything I do is for my kids. Like every committee I join, every job I take, every decision is rooted in what is going to help my kids in the long term, and not only help my kids, but like help their friends and help, just the kids in the area. And I'm a mom. I'm just a mom that cares and wants to figure out how to make a difference in the world. And school boards are a really good way of doing that. Like we have an ability to really make some real change for kiddos that are struggling. And it's awesome that I have an opportunity to be a part of that.
Yeah. Now, you've worn a lot of hats: parent, advocate, nonprofit leader. I wanted to see if we can get you to elaborate on some of those roles, and how do these roles show us the way that you lead on the board, or that you intend on continuing to lead?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that makes me a bit of a different school board member, just because of my experience, my personal experience with housing insecurity and domestic violence. My experience is working with the unhoused community in Lane County. You know, having queer kiddos, having neurodivergent kiddos, having a trans kiddo. I try to think about the questions that other people might not ask, either due to lack of knowledge or fear, or you know, it's just people don't always think about who's not in the room with them, who's not there to help make those decisions. And I try to bring those questions to the forefront. Like, decisions that we make impact everyone, impact the kids directly, impact the educators, impact staff. And it's as simple as like what is on the menu in the cafeteria, or whether a multilingual learner has packets sent home to them in a language their parent can understand. Like, we don't have any materials in Hebrew, and we have individuals in our community that only speak Hebrew. And so now their kids are being forced to translate for them, and that makes things really complicated. So just thinking about those sorts of things, who's being left out of decisions, who's being left out of the policies, and then also, like, what are kids bringing with them to school? Like, kids now, I think, have a lot more issues that people are aware of than when I was in school. There's so many kids that are couch surfing. There's so many kids that are working a job either before or after school to help supplement their family's needs. There's kids that are the primary caregivers for their siblings. When kids don't have a quiet place to study, they don't have a place to lay their head, they don't have food to eat at home, like, all of that impacts their ability to be a learner. And so just trying to remember, it's not for the kiddos that have, you know, this quintessential perfect life. They have a dual family household. They have a house. They have food. They have all, you know, they have medical services. They have what they need. It's the kiddos that don't have those things that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a growing gap between the haves and have-nots, regardless of who's in power federally, but that we could be here all day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it's the and I mean, and it feels like there's almost a reset on civil rights. There was a push in a positive direction in allowing people to just be living freely as they see fit. And I'm going to put it that way because it comes down to it's nobody else's business what morality or any of that stuff people want to put on it. And I'm not saying, I'm not painting any picture of what it is. It doesn't matter what someone's morality is of somebody else's life, meaning, if they're not hurting anybody. So it's just so difficult that we see this reset. And I know that people don't pay attention enough to understand these issues. You had mentioned having LGBT kids and the challenges, because I think that there's this idea that, now that Trump's elected, that we don't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore. Well, that's not reality. That's just not how the world works, and so speak on how that has changed. I don't want to get too caught up in the federal stuff, but as a parent and with those challenges, can you speak a little bit more on how that has evolved in the last maybe 2 to 4 years, for you?
So it's complicated, and it's honestly, like, now it's scary. Like,
Yeah.
2 years ago wasn't necessarily afraid of my kid being on the bus by themselves, being who they are. And now I have a real fear about that. The fact that we have book bannings that are going across the country that are targeting books that are quite literally life-saving books, like allowing kids to see themselves represented in the literature at their school. That's alarming. The fact that we're having arguments about who belongs in what bathroom. Like, I don't need to look in anyone's pants. Like, if they want to go
right.
to, they just want to go pee. Like, I'm not concerned about where kids are going to the bathroom. Like, that should be the least of our concerns. Everything that's happening at the federal level and the changes that are making the changes that are occurring. Like, I just keep thinking, my grandfather fought in World War II and helped liberate concentration camps as a Jew, and that, like, he would be appalled to know that we're now fighting these same fights, that we're all these things that he fought for, these freedoms he fought for, these opportunities he fought for his kids and his grandkids and his great grandkids. We're now having to fight these same fights. And I'm not willing to just sit back and let it happen. Like, that's amongst the reasons that I'm doing all the things that I'm doing, because we have to shape the world the way we want it. Like, we can't just sit back and let the world happen to us. Like, we are responsible for making the world that we want to see. And we need to have this world be a better place for our kids and our grandkids and our neighbors' kids and our friends' kids and the kids down the block. Then, like, it needs to be better for them than it was for us.
Yeah.
And we're backsliding, and that's not okay. It's just flat out not okay.
No, and there's a pendulum swing that happens, in our political system on a national level, especially. And I'm worried that Oregon's going to be used as a example, that they're going to basically stir up the pot. It's already happening, where they're stirring up the pot with protests by you had used the word that there's fascist type, moves. And it's not too extreme to say that. It's literally fascism playbook.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about speaking out, because I'm pretty vocal, pretty blunt. I don't really want to live in a society that I can't speak out. So just at that point, then just put one right there. That's the way I look at it. Because if that's the case, then I would literally fight for the death for that. If I live in a world where me doing this, having conversations with kind people, is too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's insanity.
Yeah.
And we're going there.
And it's people, it's like people like you, like, and me, that, like, I recognize the privilege that I come from.
Sure.
And if we're not speaking out, if we're not willing to take risks and speak out and say, no, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this thing, this is harming someone, this is like, even if it's harming one person, we should not be doing it. Like, we have to have more of us that are willing to just stand up and say that this is not okay, because otherwise we let hatred win. We let our kids continue to suffer because they're not being accepted for who they are and who they love and what they believe in. Like, it's just,
And there's
yeah,
so
I
much
can't.
misinformation, I mean, the stuff, I mean, it was the whole thing about kitty litter boxes in schools and all this nonsense that was being pushed around all over the country. It's not real,
Yep.
and then, I mean, where are the people that in Springfield, Ohio eating animals now? I mean, it never happened in the first place. So
Right.
now let's get back to local stuff. We'll bounce around a little bit. It's so hard not to take the bait to make things on the national level because it's so ingrained in our psyche because it's everywhere. It's just blah, blah, blah. You saw yesterday, not to get sidetracked again, you saw yesterday that our president tweeted out a picture of him dressed as the Pope, which is an absolutely vile and disgusting thing to do. And then yet the people that support him are like, they're kind of like, well, I don't want to speak out because the mean part is the feature. And so and if the left is the one crying, but why am I protecting religious groups? I mean, I protect religious rights, but why am I the one that's protecting decency? It's not about free speech. Go ahead and do it, but I'm going to call him a dick.
Yeah. And as you should, you should.
I don't understand it. It's wild. My family is former Catholic. We're Diet Catholic, which is Lutheran. And, but I have the utmost respect for the Catholic, church and the people as a whole. And there's issues with everybody, is in small amounts in every group or whatnot. But I was really heartbroken when the Pope died. And the fact that Trump is trying to make it about him is disgusting. And he's not a man of faith. So he's playing his own victimized voters. Anyways, let's go back to local stuff. For folks who haven't set foot in a Springfield classroom in a long time, what's something that they might not realize about what schools are up against?
I touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
What kids are dealing with now is definitely not what kids were dealing with 30 years ago when I was in school. We have teachers that are now managing mental health crises. We have teachers that are trying to make sure that kids have clean clothes and something to eat. It's gotten a lot harder just to exist in society. And so we have staff that are expected to consistently do more with less, especially after the pandemic. But the supports haven't caught up. And people think that we may be back to normal because we have in-person classrooms and in-person education going on. But normal was already underfunded. And so we're just compounding the issue at this point. So we're just continuing to put more and more struggles and more concerns on kids, and then that's in turn affecting everything that's occurring in the classroom.
Right. If they cut funding as a on the federal level as a way to get back at Joe Biden or whoever over COVID, it hurts kids. It hurts the kids. That's the thing. That's the thing that's the most difficult with what we're seeing with these cuts is that it's being done as an attack on American people. I mean, they're like these federal workers are American citizens. They're just average people that went to work, got a job. They went to college to get this job. Some of them didn't have to. And I think that that's a secret people don't realize. You can get to work for the state level, county level, federal level without a degree many times.
Yes.
But yeah. So I do think that there is some conversations and some whatnot about some of the things that with COVID, but I don't know how that's going to be able to be done in good faith, because I feel like people are they've weaponized it like they've weaponized everything else. I mean, it was a very difficult time and some bad mistakes were made on all sides. But, I had a friend of mine, Zach Bissett, who was on the school board a while back, and he was on the side of wanting to have, I might get, crap for bringing this up, but it was pretty public that he was on the side of bringing kids back to school. His wife was not. His wife was not. She's a teacher, and there was backlash because he was public about that towards her, and that's unacceptable because he has his own mindset and he was elected and he got to decide, and so it's just difficult. These are challenging things. So
100%.
I want to paint a picture about, you've been on the board now since August of 2024. I want to paint a picture of what board meetings have been like. Have they been, I mean, there's this idea that the city or that people are coming in screaming and yelling. I mean, is that true? Is there a decent turnout at some of them? What is the experience like on the board? Also, not just with dealing with angry constituents, but also with dealing with the balance of the board. Do you feel like speaking up for marginalized voices? Do you feel like you get heard on the board currently?
So to answer the first question, I thought there was going to be a lot more yelling. There's definitely not.
That's good.
We have, we get letters sometimes that are interesting and concerning. We have parents and community groups that come in occasionally, but for the most part, everyone is able to speak their mind without flipping out over anything. I see more concerning behavior on Facebook than I do on anything else. Like anytime I see a weird post about something, I'm quick to message someone in the school to say, hey, is this true? Or have you heard about this? Or like this rumor's going around, just to get some additional information. So that's been fascinating to see how much Facebook warriors do versus what actually happens at the school board. Like things will happen on Facebook and then nothing will get brought up at school board meetings. In terms of like the advocacy, I think for the most part, everyone that is currently on the school board has been super respectful. I think at the end of the day, we're all in it for the best interest of kids. And I think having the ability to disagree on topics is really important, especially like just being able to share different viewpoints. We're all coming at this from different lived experiences. Absolutely. And so I don't have anyone saying like, you're wrong because you believe X, Y, Z. Like that has not happened.
I do want to say that I think it's good that you follow up on stuff, even if you think it might be unfounded, because we don't know. And I think it's unfair for people that will be like, the way that you worded that, I really like, because it sounds as if it's not about if you agree or disagree with somebody, you will follow. We represent our whole community, when we get elected to these seats. And I know that in your heart of hearts, that would mean that even if it's somebody that you fundamentally may disagree with, you have the same goals as far as keeping your kids safe and protected and respected in school. I mean, it's pretty simple. We can, and I think we all need to start looking at each other and seeing our frustration as opposed to sometimes the solutions that we have, because we can share our frustrations with each other, with people we may disagree with, but then the solutions, we're going to have to compromise, we're going to have to come to agreements. So now we've talked about this already. This is just a different wording, but I think that this is a good chance to kind of talk about execution, what we can actually get done in these kind of boards. So how do we make sure that all students, not just those who fit traditional expectations, how do we work towards ensuring that they are truly supported and successful in our schools? So how do we actually do it?
So I think Springfield is definitely moving in the right direction with that, supporting different pathways of education. So we have A3 that does things a lot differently than the other schools. And I have one kiddo at A3 who he's extremely bright, extremely capable. I don't think he would have done well in a traditional school like Springfield or Thurston. He is he's more about demonstrating his knowledge than taking a test. Like he does not do well in traditional schools. And so he's looking at alternative education paths for after high school anyways. So supporting more options like that, supporting career and technical education, dual credit programs, alternative schooling, like kids learn in different ways. Not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone is capable of reading a text and understanding a text. Like sometimes we have to hear it. Sometimes they need to write stuff down. Like you have to figure out how to get kids to learn in the way that works for them, and providing those opportunities is super important. I also think we need to have inclusive learning practices. So kiddos that are neurodivergent struggle with doing things the way that every other student does it sometimes. And so having sensory friendly spaces, making sure that students of color see themselves not just reflected in the curriculum, but in the teachers that are teaching that curriculum. Like we need to make sure that we're bringing in educators that reflect our student body. And then trans and queer youth just feeling safe, like knowing that they can go use the restroom that best aligns with their gender identity without feeling harassed. Like just doing things to create that safe and inclusive space for children is at the very minimum what we need to do to create an inclusive learning environment for them.
And that's kind of the challenge that I think that we're going to see, is how I don't want to defend people that are like trying to be resistant towards other people's rights, but I do want to say that it is going to come up, that there's going to be this pushback where people are tired of hearing about somebody else's gender orientation. We'll say gender, I think, is one thing. Gender is there, but sexual orientation in a public school setting could be a conversation that what does this have to do with what we're doing here? I mean, in a sense, it's a tough thing. My mom was a lesbian that worked for the state, and she went through a situation. This is in like the early 90s, and she went through this really difficult thing though, where she was just going to work doing her job. Her job was the same as the next person. Her sexual orientation had nothing to do with it. Now she would go to work and she had a picture of her and her partner on her station, and someone complained, about it. And so the ultimate decision that the state made was that nobody could have pictures of their partners.
Oh my gosh.
That was the only way to make it fair. This was in the 90s. Point is that my mom got backlash for that. And she's like, I didn't make the decision. I also didn't file a complaint. And me and my friend, who's also same gender, were like wearing blue windbreakers and fishing. What's the problem? Do you know what I mean? Like people they just need to, so we got to pick our battles, and whatnot. But it's difficult. It feels like, there's a lot of talk right now about the election was lost because people tried to the left went too far. That's what the mainstream media wants to say. But that's because they're birds of the same, they're wings of the same bird, the two corporate sides, that they don't actually want change. They want to make sure that their shareholders still have money, but that's a different story. So you talked about centering equity and inclusion. What does that look like when decisions get tough and dollars are tight? I mean, there's so much less funding is going to be coming. So how do we keep this as a top priority?
I mean, I think at the very bottom, the base level is we just don't automatically cut funding that serves the most vulnerable students that are multilingual, special education aides, mental health staff. Like we just can't cut that, because if we cut that, it's going to create just a tsunami of other impacts that we know are going to happen if those go away. It also means checking ourselves, like who is not at the budget table with us when we're making those decisions. Like who are we not hearing from that's going to be directly impacted anytime we make any changes? Equity doesn't mean equal, and I think people often don't understand the difference there. It means we need to be meeting people where they're at, and that's especially important when we're dealing with the scarcity of resources. Like we have to meet faculty, we need to meet students, we need to meet families where they're at, and figuring out how to do so with less. Like, I mean, I've been in nonprofit work for a long time. That's kind of the name of the game. So, there's creative ways of doing it, but we have to be willing to make those decisions.
Are you familiar with the community tool? It's called Educational Equity Now. It's a resource. It's a local website. It's a business, or not a business. It's a nonprofit. But a good friend of mine was on, him and his partner at the time. They were the founders of it. It's called Educational Equity Now. And my buddy Nels was one of the people that started this. And it was really cool because it's a tool for he says, students that experience exceptionalities. And that, he's a special ed teacher and he is absolutely passionate. He's been on my podcast multiple times. And that is a really cool tool. I'm not sure where they're at with it. I was originally on the board, but I really was too busy and I didn't have a lot that I could bring to it. So I stepped down. But it was an honor to be asked to do it. I did it for the first couple meetings, but check out that tool, educationalequitynow.com.
Yeah, definitely.
So now teachers and staff are facing burnout. What have you seen as vice chair, and what would you push for better support for them?
We've seen teachers leave mid-year. It's definitely not because they don't love the work. Like you don't go into teaching if you don't like kids. Sure. It's because it's becoming unsustainable. Like we're dealing with escalating behavioral needs, shortages in substitutes, mountains of paperwork. I think we need to really push for more practical supports. Like we need to have better mental health benefits, more counselors, and then honest conversations about workloads and compensations. My husband actually was a teacher. So that's another lens that I bring into this puzzle. He went to school to become a middle school math and science teacher and lasted about 3 years, and then realized that as much as he loves being in front of students and doing the teaching part of it, it's all the other stuff that was too much. And he was spending, like countless hours at home doing all the paperwork and doing all the other things that were required of teachers now. Like, it's not just standing in front of a classroom and teaching students and getting them excited about learning. Like, there is so much more to teaching than anyone expects. And so recognizing that, like, what do we need to do to give them more prep time, paid prep time at school? What can we do to provide additional supports, both for them and for the students? Those are the things like as someone whose husband was like, nope, I'm done. And he went and now he works as an analytical chemist at a different company and doesn't have to bring work home every day. Like, the world lost out on an amazing teacher because of the burnout. And so I think trying to figure out what we can do to prevent other teachers from also burning out is really important. Otherwise, we're going to not have teachers to do this. And as a parent who tried to do pandemic learning, that's not a job that I want. It's not a job that most people are capable of doing.
Mhm.
There's not enough money in the world to pay teachers what they deserve, honestly.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting as a barber because we get to know people and about their families and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of funny to hear some of the college professors talking about the challenge they had teaching their elementary kids. I'm just gonna put it that way, that these people,
Yeah.
it's a different training, dealing with different age groups and whatnot. And I think I think the beauty that came from the pandemic is, all of the other headaches aside, it really exposed how valuable certain people are, in my mind. I know that we have a lot of people that think that it didn't exist and that the federal employees are your enemy, but those people are not actually trying to make solutions. They're trying to win and browbeat people. But anyway, you now that this is something that we're gonna end up. I know that this is something you're super passionate about, so this will be a long-winded section. But you've worked in housing and community services. I know that this is one of your real passions. Obviously, probably your two main passions is working with your kids and kids on a bigger scale, and then also housing is huge to you. I know that anybody that Chris McAllister calls a friend, this has to be something that they're passionate about. What lessons from that world belong in the public education space?
So I think one of the really cool things that we do at the organization that I'm a director of, community supported shelters, we meet people where they're at, not where we think they should be.
Housing first. That's the whole, right? I mean,
so we actually we do housing focused because we have a lot of our clients have been individuals that have been chronically unhoused or have literally never been housed in their lives. They lived in cars as children and have continued to live in cars or in tents or on the street their entire lives. And so if I were to put some of our clients directly from the street into an apartment, like, they don't know how to cook on a stove. They don't know how to properly clean a house. They don't know what to do if they disagree with their roommate. Like, they don't have those skills because they were never given the opportunity to learn them. They straight up did not have the opportunity. And so figuring out what could we do to help people be successful where they're at now and figure out what their goals are for the future. When it comes to our clients, their goal might just be to be sober for a week. They haven't been sober in a week, and that's a goal that they're working towards. Some folks, they want to be a business owner. They want to go to school and they want to get, training so they can open a restaurant, or they want to save up enough money to buy their own RV and live out of that. It's not my place to tell people what their goals are and what their dreams are and what they can and cannot accomplish. My whole responsibility is, how can we get you to that goal? I'm not going to tell you can't do it. Let's just be creative and figure out how we can make that happen for you. And so centering humanity, centering the human in everything we do, schools need to be the same way. And it's all about figuring out what that anchor can be, what that support system should be. And schools should be anchors of support, not silos. We cannot continue to be okay, school is here and housing supports are here and food supports are here. No, it has to be all linked together. As a community, we have to be working together. We need to stop existing in silos. If you have housing insecurity, you're probably also struggling with food insecurity, which means that you're probably struggling with some sort of health thing, which it all ties together. And we need to stop pretending like it doesn't. Collaboration across sectors is key. It's all connected, and we need to figure out ways to be more intentional about that collaboration.
On that note, if somebody finds them, and this is, I'm putting you on the spot, this wasn't in our notes. If somebody finds themselves, and this is more geared towards probably an adult, but if somebody finds themselves homeless, what is the number one resource that you turn them to right off the bat? The first place that you would turn them. It's so tough because there's so many places are getting slashed.
Yeah, you know? It is really tough. I mean,
well, then,
honestly,
Heather, maybe we need to create this resource.
we definitely do. And I think, you know, as someone who struggled with housing insecurity and after getting out of an abusive marriage and was like, okay, like I'm running out of diapers. I have a gallon of milk in the fridge and basically nothing else. Like, what do I, and I had a 3-year-old at the time. Like, what do I do? Where am I supposed to go? And the fear really sets in at that point. Like, is someone going to take my kiddo away from me because I'm struggling to provide for them right now? Like, how do I keep my family together? How do I keep myself and my kiddo safe and fed and clothed and warm without judgment, without fear of you know, something bad happening? And so I think just I'm really pleased that like that community supported shelters can offer just a safe space for people to be. And so honestly, when I talk to people that are on the streets, when I talk to other providers, when I talk to you know, just anyone that's struggling, like, just coming into our office when we're open, like, we provide showers, we have food, we have clothing, we have basic first aid supplies, we have Narcan, like, we have a little bit of everything. We can at least get you to the point of being stabilized and then figure out what other resources we can refer you to in the community. So with the closing of the white. Okay, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. You're going to talk about Whitebird. Go ahead.
I was going to say, with the closing of the whiteboard front rooms, like, you know, Raven is doing a great job of trying to really recapture folks that were part of that program. But, you know, our organization is doing the same. And so if there's things that we can do to just support the most vulnerable in our community, that's what we need to do. We need to step up
and meet them where they're at. I mean, that's the answer. That's what I'm hearing is what you're saying is that there isn't a one size fits all approach to how you deal with each person's situation. There's a lot of good resources, and unfortunately they're under threat. And so if anybody really wants to support, there's a lot of nonprofits. I'm a big believer in shelter care. You know, I like to read. Shelter care is one that I've done a couple small little things for fundraisers. But yeah, so we've got 2 more questions and then we're going to get out of here. What is something that you're proud of from your time on the board so far? And what's an area where you'd like to see more growth? I think we've talked about a lot of that already, but what's an area that you're proud of? What's something that you were happy to see kind of evolving in the short time that you've served so far?
I honestly am getting like so excited about the number of students that feel comfortable coming up to me and talking to me about things that they're concerned about and issues that they have. Because like, as I don't know, like it started with my friends' kids. Like, they would just be like, oh, you're on the board. What does that mean? Okay, like, let me complain to you about this thing. Let me tell you about this thing that happened that I was really excited about. Let me tell you about this thing that I think we could do better at. And as I've been going out into schools and having listening sessions, it's the kids that are coming up and telling me about what it is that they need, what it is that they want, what we can improve upon. And this whole thing, everything that we do in the schools exists for the children. So like, just knowing that they're getting to the point where they feel comfortable talking to, you know, someone who's in a position of power, like whether like I consider myself in a position of power or not, like I do hold power as a board member.
They see that though. The kid sees that.
But the fact that like I'm willing to, like, I literally gave like a dozen high school students my phone number 2 weeks ago. And I was just like, no, like, if you have questions, call me. If you aren't getting answers, call me. If you see something that's weird or wrong or that we can improve on, call me. I want to be that person to connect you to the grand scheme of everything that we're doing here. So just, that's been like the coolest thing that I think I've been establishing. I love being able to talk to students of all grade levels.
I got two things with that. That one thing I want to give a shout out to Sean Van Gordon, because Mayor Sean Van Gordon from Springfield, because he is super passionate about trying to get kids involved in civics, and he's trying to talk to me about ways potentially behind the scenes. We need to visit those conversations, but he's talked about ways that we can do these fun things, because I can tell you from personal experience, just as a podcaster, let alone back when I was a high school student, that if you get a chance to sit down with people like yourself, people like Karn Knutson, Sean Van Gordon, the mayors of Eugene and Springfield, I've met with Joe Burney, I've met with county commissioners and all these different people from doing my podcast. And I love it because I have been able to maintain who I am. And I've gotten some respect from people that I admire. And when you do get looked at eye to eye from people in positions, it gives you a sense of belonging, and so these kids that are being included, it gives them a sense of belonging. And I think that it gives them a sense of pride, and then they start to see themselves in those positions. Because if they meet you eye to eye, what's to say that they can't steal your job? And that's what your goal is to motivate these kids to be better than us.
100%.
And so that's one thing I want to give a shout out to the people that are putting in the work, like yourself. And so one last question. If a Springfield voter is on the fence or doesn't usually vote in school board elections, what would you want them to take away from this conversation?
Vote for, just everyone needs to be voting. We need to be more involved in the political process. But I've lived through a lot of the struggles that our families are facing, and I'm not here to play politics. Like, I don't consider myself a politician. I'm just a mom that wants to do right by her kids and by other people's kids. So I'm here to fight for kids like mine, for kids like yours, for your neighbors, for your coworkers, for the kid down the street. Like, I believe that every student deserves a chance, and it's not just the kids that are like the easiest to serve. Like, every kid deserves to be successful, whatever it looks like for them. And if that is something that you believe in too, then I hope you vote for me.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to the political part, we got to stop looking at like we're doing things to each other. We got to start doing things with each other.
100%.
You know what I mean? This whole like, I'm going to make this person feel this. Nope. We're going to work together and find solutions. That's the only answer. Well, Heather Quaas-Annsa, did I get it right? Is that's
close? Pretty close.
Pretty close. Heather, thank you so much. And where do you have a website? Where's the best way for people to reach you?
So you can find me on Facebook. It's Heather Quaas-Annsa for Springfield Public Schools. My website is hmquuas.polyengine.com. There's signs all over the place.
Yeah.
You can email me at hqa4sps@gmail.com. I want to talk to you. If people have questions, like, send me a message. Let's get the conversation going.
Sure. And people can attend school board meetings. They're listed on the Springfield Library or the Springfield City website. You can attend it virtually. I don't know if you can participate virtually, but you can watch. I really recommend that people watch city council meetings on Monday nights and school board meetings and the different things that come up. And there's a lot of information online about that, on how to do that. If you'd like to donate to my podcast to help me continue doing this is all these little gadgets are getting more and more expensive. So if you'd like to donate, you can go to strpod.com and you can make a donation on Venmo, PayPal, or Patreon. Become a monthly donor if you'd like. You could do any amount, small, big, it doesn't matter. $2 a month, $5 a month. I would love that. It really helps me with things. Heather, thank you so much. Good luck on your race.
Thank you. Really appreciate the invite.